At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. A moment comes, which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends, and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, finds utterance.
And India stands at the cusp of that moment in time, a moment which will forever be recorded in the annals of our parliamentary history, leaving forever an indelible mark on our democracy. What was deemed unnecessary by the Constituent Assembly in 1947, 75 years later, in 2023, its time has come. The Women Reservation Bill, political reservation for women.
मैं पूरे देश को नारी शक्ति बंधन अधिनियम संसद के दोनों सदनों में और भारी बहुमत से और राज्यसभा में तो सर्वसम्मति से पास होने की बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
India, the world's largest democracy of 1.4 billion people, and women make up nearly half of the country's 950 million registered voters, but only 15% of lawmakers in parliament and 10% in state assemblies. Are we now a nation finally mature enough to accept that women need equal space on the decision-making table? Are we ready to push for higher representation of women in Indian legislative roles?
Suddenly, the bill popped up from our computer screens like Jack in the Box. Is this going to be the way this government is going to function?
आज आप लड्डू दिखा रही औरत को, बोल रही है लड्डू आपके लिए है, लेकिन आप इसको खा नहीं सकते, ये यहाँ पे पड़ा हुआ है।
ये आए हैं जिनका की मानसिकता ही नहीं है कि महिला को रिजर्वेशन मिले, चाहे वो राष्ट्रीय जनता दल है, चाहे वो समाजवादी पार्टी है, चाहे इनके सारे मुस्लिम एमपी हैं।
Why is it that we are only asking for something? बड़ा दिल करके आप ST, SC, OBC, let's make a constitutional amendment. It's a special session. Let's send a message to this nation.
धर्म के आधार पर आरक्षण वर्जित है।
When this government wanted to protect cows, and I support the move, make no mistake, you did not wait to count the number of cows. You did not wait to see whether the cow was a Jersey or a Gir or a Sahiwal. You just went and built the cow shelters. Are we women any less that we have to wait while you count numbers and you draw lines?
ये जो कह रहे हैं क्यों नहीं कर देते, कौन करे? हम करें और फिर वायनाड रिजर्व हो गया है तो आप क्या करोगे? हमको कहोगे कि भाई पॉलिटिकल कर दिया।
21st September 2023. The Indian Parliament etched history in 4 words: Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, passing the Women's Reservation Bill that will reserve 33% or 1/3 of seats in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies for women. Both houses passed the landmark bill with unanimous support.
Something all around.
Noes 0, abstain 0. Honorable members, the motion is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. The bill is passed by the constitutionally required majority.
History was made. Yes, it was. But was 21st September 2023 a red letter day for women's rights in India? Or was it a red herring, where we showed the will and intent, but essentially fell short of deliverance? Well, only time shall tell. And in the meantime, let's tell you what the past has told us so far.
This story, if we may put it, is older than its official record.
Even before India freed itself from colonial rule, the first call for equality of political status for Indian women was made in a letter written by Begum Shahnawaz and Sarojini Naidu in 1931. The letter read, "To seek any form of preferential treatment would be to violate the integrity of the universal demand of Indian women for absolute equality of political status."
You know, in the Constituent Assembly, which framed the Constitution of India, this was discussed, but women did not want to go the reservation route. They wanted to be selected on merit. When women found that they were systematically kept out of politics for a variety of reasons, that the demand that there be reservation for women in parliament and state assemblies started to grow.
And now the time comes.
Then in 1971, the United Nations requested a report on women's status in the country from each nation, which led to the formation of the National Action Committee for Women, Status of Women in India. Its aim? To look into the matter of women's representation in the elected bodies. In 1987, Rajiv Gandhi constituted a committee headed by Margaret Alva, and its top recommendation was political reservation for women.
We were not really a government-constituted committee, but I brought women from different sectors, and each group prepared their plan of action for their particular subject. Like we had women talking about agriculture, we had women working on employment, we had women in the informal sector, you know, things like experts in those areas. So we identified 14, if I may say so, segments in which women need to be given incentives and to change their lives. One of the segments in that was political empowerment.
And then it was in 1989 when the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi introduced a constitution amendment bill for 1/3 reservation for women in panchayats and municipal corporations. While it was passed in the Lok Sabha, the bill failed in the Rajya Sabha. And then a few years later, the bill for reservation in Panchayat Raj was passed as the 72nd and 73rd Constitutional Amendment Acts in 1992 and 1993 under the government of P.V. Narasimha Rao. More than 14.5 lakh women took leadership positions by becoming a part of local governance after the historic amendment was passed. Sadly, the bill later that year failed in the Rajya Sabha.
There was the VP Singh government, then there was Gujral ji, then there was somebody, you know, it sort of... And finally, when P.V. Narasimha Rao ji took over again, when the Congress government took over and P.V. Narasimha Rao ji became Prime Minister, these amendments were brought back. Now this time there was so much sentiment after the assassination and so on that nobody opposed it. And the bills went through, but that was only for local bodies. Those constitution amendments in the 90s, early 90s, have today brought almost 17 to 18 lakhs of women into elected bodies at the local level.
I think that was the first major step in breaking, in a way, the male stranglehold over politics. Then the question came, if you can do it in panchayats, why not in assembly and Lok Sabha? To that there was resistance.
Then came H.D. Deve Gowda-led United Front government in the picture. It was under this government in 1996 when the Women's Reservation Bill was first introduced in the Lok Sabha as the 81st Amendment Bill. But the bill failed to get passed by the lower house. In 1998, Atal Bihari Vajpayee-led National Democratic Alliance, the NDA government, introduced the bill in the 12th Lok Sabha. The Vajpayee government subsequently brought it in 1999, 2002 and 2003, but failed to muster the support the bill required to become a law. It was in the first Manmohan Singh-led United Progressive Alliance, the UPA government, that the legislation was introduced in the upper house in 2008. The next day, it was sent to a parliamentary standing committee. The Standing Committee presented its report in 2009, and the Women's Reservation Bill received the Union Cabinet's approval in February 2010.
Ayes 186, Noes 1. The motion is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting.
Though the bill eventually passed in the Rajya Sabha by a 186-1 margin on 9th March 2010, it was never taken up for consideration in the Lok Sabha. This was a historic moment, as they put it then. There was much to cheer for the women of this country. Among the happy faces, prominent ones that are etched in many of our minds were of Sushma Swaraj, alongside Najma Heptullah and Communist representative Brinda Karat. Lines of diversities were crossed for the good of women when the movement was a priority over different ideologies that parties nurtured since the day of independence.
Vajpayee ji called me to the meeting of the Standing Committee and congratulated me, saying, "ये तो plan जो बनाई है, मुझे लगता है कि historic है और इससे महिलाओं के लिए बहुत कुछ हो सकता है." So he had it discussed in the HRB committee of Parliament. So lots and lots of those recommendations have been implemented.
To be fair, that's still there today. I think sort of women MPs across party lines, we do have a sisterhood, we do have a sorority. I would be lying if I said that that doesn't happen even today.
While debates constantly emerged through all of these years, political patriarchs surfaced too.
समूचे पुरुष से पिछड़ी है महिला, पिछड़ी महिला में जो पुरुष में कास्ट सिस्टम है वो महिला में कास्ट सिस्टम है।
ऐसी लड़कियां आएंगी उद्योगपतियों की, बड़े बड़े अफसरों की, या लड़कियों को देखकर लड़के पीछे से सीटी बजाएंगे। हाँ, बता रहा हूँ आपको।
अगर आंदोलन के यहाँ कुछ महिलाएं इकट्ठी हो जाएंगी और कहेंगी महिला रिजर्वेशन, हो सकता है हमारे पास संख्या ना हो, लेकिन मैं कहता हूं सुकरात अकेला बढ़ गया जहर खाकर। हम जहर खा के सदन में मर जाएंगे।
Motion move. Any member desiring.
Who is a woman who is not? Only short-haired women won't be allowed. We will not oppose reservation. We will stick to our old stand of reservation within the reservation. The bill must include reservations for Muslim women, women from backward classes and Dalits. Only women from affluent class can go forward, remember this. Rural women will not get a chance. Our rural women are not that attractive.
सोशलिस्ट लीडर हैं मुलायम सिंह यादव जी, शरद यादव जी और लालू यादव जी, रामविलास पासवान जी, नीतीश कुमार जी, और मैं भी उनमें हूँ। हम लोगों की ये राय थी कि महिलाओं का आरक्षण तो होना चाहिए 33%, लेकिन जो वीकर सेक्शन की मार्जिनलाइज्ड इकोनॉमी की जो महिलाएं हैं, जो कास्ट की महिलाएं हैं, दलित हैं, आदिवासी हैं और बैकवर्ड क्लास की महिलाएं हैं, जिनका 55% उनका जनसंख्या है, उनको भी इसमें इन्वॉल्व किया जाए। इसमें जो ज़्यादा पढ़ी लिखी, ज़्यादा सोशली और पॉलिटिकल जो एक्टिव ग्रुप्स हैं, उन्हीं ही की महिलाएं संसद में पहुंचेंगी। तो जो वीकर सेक्शन के लिए जो योजनाएं बननी हैं, उनका जो सोशो इकोनॉमिक एम्पावरमेंट होना है, उस मंजिल से हम दूर हो जाएंगे।
I remember Sharad Yadav had at that time said that, if OBC quota is not built within the quota, Parkati women, short-haired women would take over in these constituencies. Now that is a flawed argument for the simple reason that if you have a OBC-dominated constituency, will parties, and it's reserved for women, the gender part is there, will parties feel somebody from Delhi, Bombay, in that constituency, will they be able to win? or will the parties field a local, strong OBC candidate who's a woman? So this fear that, urban women will come and take over rural constituencies at the cost of rural women, I think was a flawed argument.
I recall in the 1990s, for example, the male MPs made sure every time the women's reservation bill was brought that they would in some way or the other block it. The only change that has really taken place is that there is now a Mahila vote bank. This is not about Nari Shakti. This is about the rise and the emergence of a distinct woman Mahila vote bank.
It is our day, it's a historical day. I remember in 86 what I moved from my seat in Rajya Sabha is become a reality.
2010's failure was big enough to give an epiphany that the struggle hasn't come to an end even now.
It's a can that's been kicked down the road. It's like intention is there, promise is there, but then women have had promises made to them over and over and over again without implementation. It almost went through in 2010.
According to the Constitution Amendment Bill of 2023, as nearly as maybe 1/3, including seats reserved for women belonging to the SC and STs, of the total number of seats to be filled by direct election to the House of People shall be reserved for women. Like the 2010 bill, the current one also has a sunset clause, mandating that the reservation will be for a period of 15 years from the date of commencement of the Act. It shall come into effect after an exercise of delimitation is undertaken for this purpose, after the relevant figures for the first census taken after the commencement of the Constitution. And now, delimitation would happen after the results of the first census, after 2026 is published.
I'm asking you a simple question. Is this going to be, do we have any clarity as to when this will happen? This will not happen in 2024. We don't even know it will happen in 2029 because it depends on the census. The 21 census isn't out. We don't know when the 26 census will be out, after which the delimitation exercise will take place. This is going to be very contentious because the delimitation is based on population, where states which have not controlled population are going to be rewarded with more seats, and states which have done the right thing and controlled population will be disincentivized. So Kerala gets no increase, 0%. Tamil Nadu get 26%, Orissa gets 33%, whereas Rajasthan will get 100%, Uttar Pradesh 79%, Madhya Pradesh 79%. So delimitation is not going to be easy to implement. So this bill will come after even that. So we don't know if it's going to come in even 10 years or 15 years. So, the journey isn't over. The day 33% women sit in parliament will be the day of celebration.
It's often said, will women be able to improve the lot of women? How do you know? But suppose do you ask that question of men? No. Will men rulers be able to improve the lot of men? You don't ask that question. Even if they don't, they have an equal right to be there.
It's 2023, but are we witnessing a new dawn? History has taught us to be skeptical, and the inconclusive timeline to the implementation of reservation leaves us with questions.
Why are you postponing? You pass the bill today and you say it will take 6 to 8 years to implement it. You're not doing it with any other bill, are you? There is no such thing that आज bill pass करेंगे और 8 साल के बाद implement करेंगे.
The bill has been brought in with an eye on the polls. Even this special session of Parliament was convened so that you can try and take benefits and encash on the women vote bank for the state assembly elections that are scheduled for November-December.
As per 2019's Lok Sabha elections, Indian women could only manage 78 out of 543 seats in the Lok Sabha. And the number doesn't get any better if you look at the Rajya Sabha, where there are just 31 women parliamentarians out of 238 seats. India has one of the lowest representations of women in parliament among some major countries and its neighbours.
For a country that's a democracy, a proud democracy, and a country which is aspiring to be the third largest economy in the world, it is going places where these figures are nothing but shameful.
We have had 5 political parties headed by women in our country. There was Jayalalitha, there was Mayawati, Sonia Gandhi, Mamata Banerjee, and in Kashmir, Mehbooba Mufti. 5 of them. But how many seats went to women? I was on the Central Election Committee for 10 years with Sonia Ji as my chairman. It was such a problem getting names cleared for elections. They would say, "Kya Margaret ji, aap kya lad rahi hain? Ye jeetengi kahan? Mahilaएं जीतेंगी कहाँ? कौन उनको?" And I'll tell you something. We did a study in the Congress Party. The percentage of members, of candidates who were elected vis-a-vis the number of seats given was much higher for women than for men, of the seats given. And re-election also, it's women who do much better for a second time. That's why the men are afraid. That's the problem. I used to have so many battles in the Central Election Committee to get women's names through. She's either too old or she can't, run around. She doesn't have the backing. She doesn't have this. She doesn't have the money to fight. Always an excuse.
Let's be honest. The state which has a woman chief minister, only one Indian state has a woman chief minister, West Bengal. She was able to ensure in the last election, she gave 17 of the 42 Lok Sabha seats to women of the Trinamool Congress, Mamata Banerjee, and even in the Vidhan Sabha, she gave a substantial number of seats to women. So when you have a woman as a leader, it is perhaps easier to break the glass ceiling. So what West Bengal thinks today, India must think tomorrow.
It's important to put down the names and faces of women who over decades have fought the good fight. Some we can recall, the others will remain the unsung heroines of this piece, where women across party lines have together in sisterhood to speak not just for their parties, but for the women of this country. For the first time, the bill is passed the parliament test of both houses. While the intentions have been made clear by the Modi government as they named the bill Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam.
You saw the procession, the way Narendra Modi ji entered the parliament that day. They cleared up both the sides. There was a red carpet. There were people blowing bugles. There were people saying Bharat Mata from the back. I want that day to come. I want 33% women MPs to walk on that red carpet into this new parliament with people saying Bharat Mata ki jai. That is a day of celebration, not today.
But is this truly the Indian woman's tryst with destiny, where history in its true sense will record a watershed moment in her story, not just his story? No, not just yet, but the making of that moment has begun. And we, the women of our country, are watching.